Yeah, I did a presentation last year about a large building project.
Sorry, just verifying.
And I included a few that we were just still negotiating at the time, which I realized that it's not worth bothering. So this presentation is about projects that are actually ongoing or even close to finish. So there's 5 that we're working on. Belmont Cove in the Bronx. We're looking for someone to lead that install. And there's Lily Hub in the Bronx, which Andrew's looking after. And Olmstead on the Upper West Side, which John Lee's taken on. And 165 Broome Street, which is a building across there, you can see it out the window. I'm hoping Daniel takes that on. I've been kind of project managing that, and we've got contractors running the fiber, so we're just doing the routers in the, no, we're not even doing that, we're just doing the panel in Broome Street, and the contractors are doing the rest. And 50th Street in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, which is it's about 3/4 done. So this is Lily Hub, way up there in the Bronx. It's close to the East River, so we'll have wireless connections to Inwood, so it'll be a great way to get up into North Manhattan as well. And Belmont Cove is like on a hill, so it's going to be a great, that'll be a super node. We're going to run fiber there. And hopefully connect Belmont to Lily Hub wirelessly. So we'll really start to get the Bronx going once we've got these 2 hubs up there. And there's Olmstead on the Upper West Side there. And these are the other 2. There's Broome Street, where we are now, and 50th Street down in Sunset Park. Belmont Cove is like the building that's new construction, so we're getting used to the idea of working from architects' drawings and getting in before the buildings started. And this is Lily House. We were initially asked to do the Lily House, which is the building on the right there, and I just by chance said to Derek, the manager, that it would be nice if we could stick the antenna on the building next door, and he said, oh yeah, we manage that one too. So we're doing both buildings there, which is it's pretty amazing. They're going to pay for the wires there, so we'll be able to do internet in the tall building, and we're doing access points in all of these apartments, so that I'm not sure. It was a shelter. I'm not sure what status it'll have after they've done the renovation, but that'll be access points for them moving into the apartments. It's 32 apartments, and there's an office on the ground floor. We're going to do that as well. So this is we've already done. Sean's already put all the access points in the apartments, and we haven't done a panel in there yet. So we're working on that, and then we've got to figure out where the backhaul is coming from. This is Olmstead. It's just huge. It's pretty much pretty similar to Grand Street, and you have 4 buildings and hundreds of apartments. I think how many apartments is it?
1,600 on the property, 400 in the initial install.
Yeah, 400 in the initial building. And, each building has different management, so we're just doing one building there to start with, and I'm pretty sure they'll be happy with it, so the other buildings will join later. The advantage of having buildings on one lot is that you only pay for one fiber lease, like we did. It's just one fiber lease here to do the 4 buildings. It's the same with Olmstead. So it brings the cost way down. And, it's such a huge project. I'm glad we've got someone to take care of it. This is the architect's drawings of Broom Street over there, which is actually finished now. I mean, top down. They finished up to the roof. They're still sealing up the walls and whatever. But we've got to start working on the pattern very soon. And this is 50th Street as a renovation. It's two buildings spread out of it, and we've got a point-to-pointer nearby the library hub. And so we've got gigabit onto the roof, and then we've got Ethernet going into all of the apartments. And this is the Sunset Park, which is finished, kind of finished for now. Done the roof there, the lighting did, and we have the option of doing the apartments in there. It's going to be a lot of work to do that.
I kind of started that process a couple months ago. I reached out to them, was like, hey, who should I talk to about doing these apartments? And I haven't followed up since, but.
Yeah, we were a bit too late when we got into this building. With new construction, you've got to get in there before they put the sheetrock up. That's the way they do all the new buildings. And all the buildings have the raceways up in the corners, and you just run the cables there. It doesn't have any raceways in this. And Verizon and Spectrum get in there early and put all their cables inside the walls. So yeah, to do the apartments in the libraries, a lot of work. So one thing I've been thinking about a lot is standardizing installs to make it simpler. It's so much work for everyone, these installs, and you don't want to reinvent it each time. So I'm hoping we can come up with a standard panel for the fiber install. So we've got a really good design there for the fiber install. So if we can and we can just copy that and do it here, and on the code as well. We just do exactly the same thing, and that'll cut down everybody's work. I think we need. I'm kind of the project manager of that. My default course, no one else has been doing it. Someone else wants to help organize these things. It would be a big relief to me. We've been getting an install leader to do the networking and designing the panels and stuff. And we got an architect that volunteered a couple of weeks ago, so we have someone to do architect drawings. And for new construction, we have them all drawn out in the electrical drawings. And we need someone to do outreach as well. So we need a team of people on all of these buildings. And the other thing is legal. We've signed about 4 access agreements, and they're all being completely different. One was a roof lease, and but we should just have a simple one that covers everything. It's not too restrictive on either party. So I don't know if we're the end on getting a simple access agreement.
Ryan, how do you get people to write these agreements, the legal stuff? Yes, we're on them.
Ian, we've got a lawyer, mesh person, and so we get a contract and we submit it to the management company, and they show it to their lawyers. It usually goes back a couple of times, and they cross the paragraph out or add another paragraph. But we used to not do it. We'd have memorandums of understandings, whatever. It seems that this is the easiest way to do it, just have a simple legal thing and you both sign it. And, the main reason we want it is because we get 5-year fiber leases, and so if the building says, you can't be in here anymore, then we've got to pay for that lease, and we've got no way to recoup anything off it. And so, yeah, so we've got to make sure that we can stay in the building for these 5 years. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about the Olmstead hub because that is rocking and rolling right now. We've been purchasing a bunch of stuff. I was here all day today picking up orders, so fun things are happening right now. So what is this building? This is on the Upper West Side, around 96th Street. 400 units in the building that we're doing to start, spread across 19 floors. It's kind of weird in that there are 2 wings, so there are 22 units per floor, but they have separate elevators, separate stairwells, separate risers. They're just kind of divided with that center line. So that we're basically running 2 buildings worth of fiber because they don't connect. So
we have 3 other buildings that have wings as separate wings.
what are the buildings?
50th Street's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a common thing.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was new to me, so I had to think about that a little bit. Okay, so this is taking a look at the roof. So this is important to us because we can see CCNY from here. Right now they're connected via VPN, and because we'll have a fiber lease to this building, we can kind of get them directly connected to the mesh, which is an important thing for, I guess, speed and stability. We've also got line of sight across Central Park, so you can see the panoramic view at the bottom right it's an incredible view, and there's a building even closer to the park which would have an even wider range up and down the park, which is pretty cool. We've got a separate room, so this was taken before we cleaned it up, but it's all clean now and ready to go. These boxes have been removed, and we're going to be putting our server rack there. That is separate from the elevator head house, which is useful so that we don't have to worry about safety stuff. And we're going to be putting a 9U rack up there with DC power output to power all the antennas, and we're going to be running fiber from the basement. So it'll have a hard line to the basement and to the outside world. A little bit more detail on the roof. So we've got the rack figured out, then we have to actually get the antennas mounted up top. So this is a kind of weird situation where there are I-beams suspended 4 feet off the actual weather-sealed rooftop, so you're kind of jumping around from I-beam to I-beam. So we'll see how that goes when we actually have to get a ladder up there and install stuff. We're also going to be installing on I-beams with non-penetrating mounts, so we're just kind of clamping onto it and hoisting it from there. We've got some examples of our drawings here for how we're going to be mounting it to the I-beam, and schematic of how we're using channel strut and a bunch of different clamps to actually attach it. And then we're going to be running conduit from the equipment room, which is underneath the elevator room, and that's going to be running up to the roof, and all of our stuff is going to be going along there. So that's kind of our plan. Oh yeah, and then this is a picture of how the rack is going to look. So I know Rick couldn't make it, but Rick did all of the designs and drawings and stuff, so thank you for that. Any questions?
What kind of antennas are going on the roof is that coming out?
So we're going to be starting with 360 degrees of sector antennas. So I think those are, what, 10 to 15 connections a piece, and that'll serve the immediate neighborhood. And then we're going to do a light beam LR, I think, to CCNY, because that can directly connect with the hardware that's over at CCNY right now. And then once we get that established, we'll have the 24 volts and the 48 volts available to run a higher power antenna if we want to. And we're actually, I forgot to mention, we're running 2 masts here. So there's going to be 8 feet of mast space available for us to actually mount things. So we'll have tons of space. Yep.
And I was just thinking, we've done non-penetrating at SL3 for mounting this type of antenna and everything. So yeah, I think it's probably good.
Yeah. Hope so. Okay, on to the basement. So we've got another IT room in the basement ready for us. There's a whole panel where there used to be,
Oh wow.
this used to all
I know what
be
that used to look like.
the intercoms, and that's all been cut out. I did that last week, so that's all ready to go.
66 blocks. Vital 66 blocks, right?
Yeah, so we've got some networking hardware we're going to put down there. We're going to be getting a 40 gigabit dark fiber lease from I don't know, a data center somewhere to this site, and that's going to pipe into this basement room, and we're going to plug that into the rack. We've got a fancy router and a fancy switch that's going to be able to deal with that high speed. We've also, very excitingly good, we're going to try 10 gig fiber to the apartment for the first time. So rather than the 1 gigabit boxes that are at this site, we're going to have the option for 10 gigabit boxes. Obviously that requires special wireless hardware and special switches and routers and stuff. So we're not expecting the standard person to want that, especially because Wi-Fi comes built in with the 1 gig units, but it will be available. And then there's this really, really long basement hallway, 150 feet from the room that we're going to be putting stuff into, the stairwell, that we're going to be running stuff along. So, yep. And we've already got a hole in the wall, the telephone line cut out. That's going to be where our fiber goes through the riser, and then it's going to go up to all the apartments. Okay, riser conduit. So, yeah, we've got 2 sets of riser conduit running 20 floors from the basement to the roof. Each of them has a box. Some of the boxes are extremely occupied with active coax, which is serving, I don't know, Spectrum or RCN. But there are some boxes that actually have some space available to them. So that's all got landline stuff. We cut that out this past week. And this is a schematic of what we're going to be putting in. So we're going to be running fiber up to each floor and then putting a little splitter inside each floor to serve all the units on that floor. Yep. Did we cover everything? Oh yeah, the conduit's 3.5 inches in diameter, so we've got tons and tons of space to run all the different fibers. And our goal is to run 1 dedicated fiber line to each floor so that we don't have to worry about weird floors having a bunch of splits to other floors. Yeah. Questions? Yeah, go for it.
I know that this, we had looked at before, back in the day, about possibly having storage ability at this location. Has anything come out of that?
Storage for
like we have in the room here,
Oh.
or up that way, so that
there's plenty of space, but the gotcha is that they don't allow contractors outside of business hours or on weekends.
That's my question.
So,
okay.
yeah, we're at the moment by our agreement limited to only doing this during business hours, which is restrictive on our volunteer capacity, but it's been fine enough so far. We'll see how that continues.
You have to do this on weekends?
Nope, no weekend access, although I'm expecting that it'll be a little bit easier to talk to the building about that when we say, well, if the internet goes out on the weekend, we need to be able to get things back online.
Yeah.
So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah, the access agreement that we signed says 24 now.
Not the access agreement for this building.
I don't think we've done an access agreement.
There's a signed agreement, but it doesn't say anything about 24/7 access, unfortunately. So yeah, I'm hoping we can get that figured out later. Okay, next up, hallway. So yeah, we've got 2 wings, each with 11 units. Each riser is going to feed 11 units. We're using an 8-way splitter because we don't expect 100% subscription, and we can add a second one if we want. Yeah, there's plenty of space in the already existing raceway, so we don't need to do new raceway the way that we've done here at Grand Street. We're also not doing any splicing at all. We're going to use entirely pre-made cables, which from what I hear is going to be better for durability, better than standing up on a ladder with a fusion splicer trying to get things all wound up. You can already see penetrations through to the units for coax, so we'll replicate that hopefully in a clean manner for our fiber. Yep. And then this picture is looking through to the stairwell where there is a conduit running to the box where we're going to have all of our splitters. So no conduit in the stairwell either, hopefully. It's kind of packed with coax at the moment. Okay, so what's next? Yeah, this past week and this week we were cleaning stuff out. You can see the giant pile of telephone wire. There were probably a couple 100 pounds of wire that we pulled out of the risers alone, and we haven't even touched the hallways. And yeah, we've been ordering equipment, getting everything shipped to the mesh room. Throughout March, I'm planning on getting everything built in the mesh room ahead of time because we have, relatively 24/7 access to the mesh room. We can have nights where we're going and building and assembling everything, and then we'll lug everything up there either with a volunteer's car or we'll, hire movers to get everything up there, and we'll drop it off and then install over the course of a couple days. So that's going to happen sometime in April. We're also going to do our trial floor. So the thinking here is that because we have 400 units, we're going to start with 11, see how that goes, and then we can adjust our orders for equipment for the rest of the building based on how that first goes. And then, yeah, we'll do the rest of the building after that, hopefully in April and May. Okay, and yeah, there have been a bunch of different people that have been helping out so far, so thank you to everyone. A number of you are here. And yeah, if you have questions.
Yeah, right. Specifically as it relates to your timeline, where are we at on the fiber lease and the supernode side of things, right? Because it'd be a shame to hook up the trial floor and then like not be able to actually get them connected.
Yeah.
Is that in progress?
It's in progress as I understand it. I've talked to Zach, or attempted to talk to Zach, and haven't heard anything about that. I think there have been minor updates on the price for the lease, but I think we're still trying to figure out endpoints or something. I don't know really the details about that.
Yeah, I haven't heard from Zach in a week.
Yeah, I think he's in Europe right now.
Is he?
Yeah, so.
He didn't put his palm tree up on his.
Oh. Yeah, so that decision to actually get fiber into the building is just contingent on Zach and Zach alone, I think.
Right. Yeah, I just want to make sure because like if there's some timeline there, if it takes them 3 months to do that, then like you're looking at like April is pretty tight at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, as soon as Zach just okays where it goes back to, and we're getting an Ethernet connection and we're not getting dark. So you offered us options for 10, 40 or 100. We'll just take 40.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, that's my presentation. Thank you everyone.
Huge project.
Okay, so I'm Maria. I mentioned I'm from Mil Mundos. That's our website. So for those who may be unaware of Mil Mundos, we opened in 2019 as a cooperatively run bookstore. It's a Spanglish bookstore. We curate to celebrate Black, Latinx, and Indigenous heritage, and we consider ourselves more like a co-working space for each of our own praxis, and then also we sell books. We like to read. And then a year after we opened, almost exactly, we opened March 15th, 2019. We had quite the one-year anniversary. And the store closed and the books came to my apartment for fulfillment. And instead the store, we have like a little delivery window in front. And the store quickly became a hub for donations. So people could drop it off and then also pick it up. And it was a lot of PPE at first, and then it was food, and then, you worked there. And yeah, and so then I met some folks, Sammy Naymare, Fernando Ramos, and Guiney, a lot of people involved in the Bushwick area. And together, we created this thing, Bushwick Ayuda Mutua, which became kind of, if you think of like the Young Lords relationship to Rainbow Coalition, we wanted to create a coalition model where people could request support, and in fact, lots of different people could respond to these requests. By the time 2021 rolled around, we wound up forming a nonprofit as a container for work that we were already doing. We're aware of the criticisms of the nonprofit industrial complex, and we did hesitate at first. But anyway, so here we are. So Mil Mundos is a bookstore, and there's Mil Mundos en Común that operates inside of it. So BAM, as we call it, one of the things that BAM has is BAM has a developer team, like a volunteer developer team. We use Airtable for our forms. People request support. They can request support for either food or essential goods or social services. And one of those social services, for several years now, we've been surveying who could use access to low-cost internet. So right now, just for like essential goods and food, we have some live numbers up here. These are unique requests for food and essential goods, but for social services, as everyone knows, it's a little harder to respond. And so, you know, we had done some of this work. Lou from our team was involved working with Mesh to kind of put together a way forward with it. Like, do you teach people? So, you know, it's very Anglophone based. The way that, you know, we're all speaking English in here. So do you teach Mesh installers how to speak Spanish, or do you teach people who speak Spanish how to do Mesh installs? And so we thought the latter, but it was a little harder than we thought. And you know, there were lots of reasons why we were doing this anyway. You know, obviously, affordable and accessible and decentralized internet for the most vulnerable is a priority for all of us. Also, within the Hispano-Latino community in Bushwick, there is a pre-existing culture of collective caring to access daily needs. You know, like, we work with people who have recently arrived on a very regular basis, whether they've come from El Salvador or Ecuador or Guatemala. Everyone is familiar with the word cooperativa in Spanish. Everyone is familiar with those structures. And they get collective buying, you know, and they get a collective buy-in to make the daily work for them. You know, I had spoken to Mark recently, and she informed Lou and then myself later on about ACP. I was a little late on this. But programs like ACP are largely inaccessible. Those that would qualify for SNAP would qualify for ACP. However, the vast majority of the people that we're talking about that need this access in Bushwick do not qualify for SNAP. They either have pending asylum cases going on, or they've lapsed on their one-year window. Also, in programs like ACP, or similarly, when you have a subsidy on your internet, that subsidy is frequently only 1 year. And after that 1 year, you wind up running a risk of, you know, triggering an auto charge for the full amount. Most of the people that are in higher need of access to this sort of thing do not have a credit line. They only have debit, if a bank account at all. And also, just the sake of digital literacy. I know the first install that I helped with during COVID, we installed for one woman, super sweet, and she was seeing, I think, she wasn't really used to like digital devices, and she saw the Wi-Fi logo on her phone, and she asked me if this was like her partner's GPS when he drives Uber. And so we were like, okay, well, so no. And so, but it yielded a very important, critical, and very easy to manage conversation about the difference between Wi-Fi and GPS. It's like mapped out the need to have that conversation. And I know that during the intros here, we talked about decentralized data, and I don't know, like, I'm into decentralized language access, so I feel like a lot of people here might be into it too. So, I wanted to propose, so we're revisiting, I had spoken to Marg, and we thought to just bring it to the main chat of the main channel of the Mesh Slack. That instead, maybe Encomoon helps bring translators to the installers that are already doing installs with Mesh. And now, a couple of years later, we've grown. We're like a gangly teenager now instead of a little baby, you know, nonprofit. And that seems quite doable, actually. And a lot of people have been kind of waiting to hear Mesh updates, you know, on all the signal threads, on the 5-minute signal threads. And so the idea would be first, just to give a sense of, just going back to this. So we have 1,400 open requests for groceries. On the 1st and 3rd of every month, Bushwick IU will go at large in partnership with Mil Mundos and in partnership with Mayday. We do these very large distributions at Mayday Space. You can see them here and here. We use, I don't know who here has, just raise your hand if you've been to Mayday Space, just so I have a sense. Okay, so Mayday Space is, I'm missing the word, but it's the non-nave part of Iglesia de Santa Cruz. It is 3 stories. This is a mutual aid distribution that takes all 3 stories. So there is a food team of BAM. They buy groceries wholesale from a few different CSAs upstate. One of these CSAs we've worked with for so long now, and in such high volume, they are planning their first frost around this distribution. And so, as well, we've ordered from Mr. Kiwi, we've ordered from Driscoll's, despite our, basically the struggles of the weekend service, anyone who will deliver food on a Saturday morning at 8 a.m., which is tricky to find. The groceries are packed up that morning. There's a production team that packs groceries on the 1st floor. The 2nd floor is a little smaller. We pack essential goods packets, including but not limited to, diapers, menstrual pads, soap, school supplies, more recently, kitchen supplies for folks that are picking up groceries but have nothing to cook with. And then on the 3rd floor is kind of like a broader Young Lord style clothing distribution, and there are, fast fashion is a thing, and there are a fuck ton of clothes in Bushwick. And so there are always free clothes, and you do not need an appointment to pick up any clothes. Mil Mundos as well, you can see from the calendar, has several windows. We partner with Living Gallery. Anyway, so blah, blah, blah. You have this huge distro that happens on Saturdays, in which we've also had a precedent of inviting social services groups. We've invited MetroPlus to come, and anyone who can provide round trip accountability. If we invite people who have requested support from us, as long as the partner group can tell us who they've served successfully, start to finish, then we will work with that partner group, as long as there is round trip accountability and transparency. So MetroPlus has come to sign people up for health insurance. We've had New York Presbyterian come and offer primary care there for no expense. We've done a few different distributions with them, and it's really great, especially for the HERPs that have been opening up, as well as DHS shelters in the area. We will try to invite all of those folks to come and get primary care. And so this form, just looking at the data, so since we've been running this data, there are 846 unique requests for mesh installations in our neighborhood. In the last year, just in the last year, 448 of those were asked just in the last year. In the last 180 days, 354 requests, 90 in the last 30 days. In terms of zip codes, you're looking at 342 in 11237, 217 in 11385. Another 79 in 11221, which would be Southern Bushwick. Of the 846, and I can send these numbers to the chat, 760 of them are in Spanish. Other languages outside of the 760, you have Cantonese, Taishanese, Mandarin, Quechua, French Creole, Arabic, and that is all in the Bushwick area. So, if we were to do this distro, for example, it's like we invite by appointment 325 families just for food. Then we invite another 30 to 80 to pick up essential goods that they may need outside of food. Then we have capacity, if there is planning, to, with a social services partner, to invite even more people depending on the state of need here. And they can fill all this information out, but we already have it on the back end. So there are a lot of different ways we can go about this, but what I wanted to present mostly was the need. If we help people fill out this form, we also wanted to let Mesh know, hey, are we doing this together? Because experience a massive influx of Spanish applications. We can also help with acquiring line of sight from the roof, which I think a lot of people would be really into. Also, in my experience, assessing what does roof access really look like. I don't have to get into which of our nonprofits has insurance, because I just feel like not many of us do, but yeah, I feel like in terms of, I've definitely done installs where like they were like, oh, I can't get line of sight because I'm too scared to go up there. That's like, I'm sure a lot of, yeah, okay, that sounds familiar. But also looking at this data, surveying broader infrastructural development options given the collected data. You know, like, I'm sure, what was it, Daniel's very famous, what was it, 585 Seneca, or I don't know, like 20-foot poles in the middle of nowhere. Yes, the big pole, and yeah, and so, you know, it was a massive building, didn't have line of sight, and then suddenly it did. Just suddenly out of nowhere. And so, and then the internet went down one day, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And so, you know, looking at, you know, if there's a large building without line of sight, you know, I don't know, you know, and we don't know. I mean, y'all know, you know, y'all know and have a much better internalized schematic of what the network looks like here in our small town of New York City, and where other funded installs could be happening, and how to prioritize maybe different installs in the Bushwick area and Ridgewood area in order to provide line of sight for a building that you might not have a single legal lease going on in there. You might have just a wreck of a landlord situation, and nobody is going to do anything correctly or officially in that building, but you may be able to work around that building to make a lot of lives, like, to allow people to multiply by more than just 0 at home, you know? To have like some sort of connection so they can learn at home, take an online English class, you know, whatever, you know? And again, like, even this a lot of people will ask for internet, like, oh, I want to take an English class online, and again, it's like, well, you know, they're living, you know, these full lives in other languages. How do we decentralize the access to be, I have to learn English before I can learn anything else, you know? So those are, I'm just looking. Yes, and obviously Mil Mundos and Común can help fundraise to subsidize mesh installs as needed. A mesh install is $265 ish. Okay, so, you know, we can.
It's a sliding amount.
Okay, so we could, you know, but I guess as you can see from this presentation, Mil Mundos and Común's strength is really in logistics. Maybe it's a decolonizing thing, we don't do a lot of fundraising, we're very like, but yeah, we, you know, obviously we work with bigger partner groups, and, you know, we try to make these internal infrastructures possible. So, yeah, that's my presentation. And I guess my subsequent question of, like, is this something people would be interested in, and who we would love to know who would like to work on it?
What do you have in 221? You said 11211?
11221.
11221. Just on the other side of the B2E, right?
It's Broadway, between, I believe, Myrtle Broadway and
Oh, okay,
Broadway
yeah.
Junction.
That's where we've been doing.
It's Saratoga. It's north of
Yeah.
Saratoga.
That's where we did with into.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
All right.
we're there,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
That's right of the Vernon.
Yeah.
So, one thing I'm thinking about is that probably one of the most useful things we can do is we need to find like 3 Spanish speakers in your area who,
Yeah.
like people who initially take on
Yeah,
an
we did too, I
antenna
mean.
and then become like, you know, kind of
The shepherd of the area.
the shepherd of that area. That's a great word.
Yes.
The shepherd of that area.
I will say, and I forgot to mention, and I also owe
Can I-
Mesh a huge apology. So my personal node is at 1186 Bushwick, and it like stopped working one day, and I was like too stressed out in life, and I didn't know. But I do have both antennas on my roof, and there is public roof access. So if we wanted to run like un poquito taller, we could do it on the roof as needed. And the idea was for that location. We also, like when my roommate and I were moving 2 years ago, one of the things we were looking for, we explicitly asked the landlords, like, can we put an antenna on the roof? So it's there just because, like, I know how to do all this, but the minute somebody starts talking about networking, and if it's like beyond like a local area network on set, I'm just like, I don't know. And so, so if I can understand it, then anyone can understand it truly. And I've worked with a few different people at Mesh that are now busy, but you know, like also in terms of like BAM, and like Brian Abelson is somebody that I think a few people know here, and he's been really supportive on the BAM front. The last couple of installs that I was working on with Mike, and he's familiar with the work, and so you know, there a lot of people in the neighborhood are really into it, but I think in terms of people who speak Spanish, we've put as much infrastructure there as possible, and I'm definitely down for an intensive training, but I think it's going to be a meeting in both directions.
All right, let's go to the Mesh Room, pick up some equipment, and it's ready until tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's also some equipment from the 2022 installs. We had put down an initial investment into Mesh, and there is equipment at Mil Mundos ready to go.
Are you limited to those zip codes, or we can expand? Can I add a couple of more where I've got Spanish people that I have trouble break ice with?
He's saying like in
Yes, I don't know wait, what? Limited to these zip codes?
He's saying in green.
No, can we expand those zip codes that you mentioned? Because I've had situations with Spanish people that I don't know how to break the ice.
Oh, yeah.
But it's in your side of town for sure.
It's still in Brooklyn, but it's more
They
in
can be in the
Greenpoint.
Bronx, I'll text them. No problem. That's fine. But yeah, no, I think for us, you know, one of the bigger, I think this is the active part of decentralizing the language access, is having being willing and interested and galvanized and excited to have the conversations both ways. And so, yes, by all means, that is like one of the things that Mil Mundos loves doing, is helping out in that way. And I know that a lot of people, you know, especially we have some strong, you know, Cantonese support as well, and BAM, that have also really been very helpful. And those, you know, I think like different communities with different language access points also have different needs, you know, like the Cantonese speaking and Taishanese speaking community in Bushwick, they're a much older group of folks that have lived in New York for a long time. And so their needs are going to be very different than the needs of like 24-year-olds that are like, I have WhatsApp and I just cross the border. You know, like, and so, so yes, but it's all worth talking about, so.
Cool.
So you mentioned the language and the skills going both ways, and how you looked at that, how one way much easier than the other. I noticed on Slack, everything is in English, right? I don't think I've seen a single person really write anything in another language. So is that, you know, if there's a large increase of people, do you see that being like somebody needs to be in Slack acting as a translator, or do you find people that would not be doing that because Slack isn't the method of communication that's used?
So,
or is there an internal
go ahead.
translation?
It seems like you have a-
I think I have an idea about this. Maybe that if you build it, they will come. And maybe we set up a Spanish Slack channel that is in there so that
There's already two Spanish.
are there two
There's already
Spanish?
two. So
Okay.
I will say,
They must be thriving.
That didn't
I will say that in order to get in touch with Mark, I did have to re-download Slack. I do not use it at all.
So
Slack adoption
What about
is
WhatsApp?
very low.
A lot of people are familiar with WhatsApp. To give you a rough scenario of how we do outreach at BAM to so many people so regularly, we use DialPad, which is a paid marketing voice over IP software. We pay, we keep it very generic because this is SMS. And some of the volunteer developers have created not just a script on the back end that's hosted now on DigitalOcean, but a skin for non-developers to use to plug in the API token, username, content, and a CSV, and that's how we will send hundreds and thousands of texts a day to people, inviting them to food, inviting them to whatever, right? With WhatsApp, there are limitations to WhatsApp that don't exist within WhatsApp Business. However, WhatsApp Business is not encrypted. I mean, I guess take WhatsApp encryption with a grain of salt in the first place, but you know, it is a UI and a UX that people are familiar with, and especially with QR codes. You know, people will be like commonly, I'll be like, hey, you know, if you need anything else, fill out the form online, and they'll be like, what? And we're like, okay, if it's easier, I can add you to the WhatsApp. You can just click the link. You don't have to like type the link. And they're like, oh yeah. And I'm like, and so here's the thing with WhatsApp, they have to be a contact in your phone for you to add them to a group, and ain't nobody doing that. And so I think we tried, one of our volunteer developers tried to basically made a Google Voice number, got a burner device, right, made a WhatsApp with the burner number, and then WhatsApp was like, hell no. And just like, yeah. So that was a wrap on that. But we do have, there are lots of different WhatsApps, mutual aid WhatsApps in Spanish floating around New York right now. I imagine there are many in other languages as well. I've definitely seen some in French and Arabic. But in terms of what I've seen that could possibly work would be if there was a support number supported by a voice over IP background, and if there was a script that automated, like a voice over IP that had an active API that could force a text to Slack and back, is one of the more realistic things I could see. Or I know that Google Gmail has an API in the way that Google Voice does not.
I mean, it's just it's like you can do like there's a bridge software.
So you know, and whether it's written from scratch or it's, what is that? There's like they have all these like intermediary scripts written. It's like so I'm forgetting. But anyway, yes, these I think it would be to do like a push notification to Slack.
Yeah, not organic use of it, but some third-party interaction.
And it's rote and it's basic, but it's absolutely possible. And I think if people spoke to the developers of BAM, a lot of that infrastructure has already been written and is already in play. And so it's all very simple. It's like JavaScript and Python. That's it. And so so yeah, I think that's really what it is. I think the next step would be getting around colloquial typed Spanish, which is not always spelled the same way. But that's also a fun part, and we're going to see, I think, you know, just to point it out, so at Myrtle Broadway, on Stockton, I don't know if people are familiar, so a lot of people at Mil Mundos and in BAM and other groups in Bushwick have been supporting HERCs. Everyone here is familiar with a HERC, sorry. Okay, so Humanitarian Emergency Relief and Response Center. This is a Mayor Adams thing. If you are an asylum seeker, you have basically been told you cannot take up space in a DHS shelter. As he's been modifying right to shelter over and over and over, you see then people being in HERCs are being given not eviction notices, but vacate notices that they're allowed to that right to shelter for only 30 to 60 days, depending on if you are a single person or if you are a family. There is a single men's HERC that opened by Stockton in late 2022. It opened without showers or running water. And it is, I don't know, you know, I've been in one HERC in particular that is like a kind of unicorn model HERC, and it was much cleaner than most HERCs, but regardless, we're talking open floor plan. People do not have bedrooms. They're cots. You're talking 100 to 150 per floor. This is industrial zoned space that has been quickly renovated to be residential by the city. Or not renovated, frankly. But a lot of these people that came to this shelter in particular were from Senegal and mostly Mauritania. And so you have suddenly in a neighborhood that, you know, I moved into 10, 12 years ago, like I love this neighborhood, it's really Latin, I'm looking at the demographics, I'm like, damn, 81% Latin. All of a sudden, and Bushwick has, I mean, roughly 120,000 residents in Bushwick, I mean, not including Ridgewood. Just in one go, 700 residents speaking French. And the turnaround is every 30 days. You now have thousands of French speakers in Bushwick. And in the way that you see a lot of Hispanohablante folks that are in a position to give, working very naturally with people who really could use some assistance, you don't see that crossover with Francophones, right? If you're in a position to give versus when you're in a position where you could really use some help, that is like not happening, right? And so there isn't necessarily like a common shared experience there. And so, you know, there's also this entire community. Like we went to a resource fair, Mil Mundos went to a resource fair this past Saturday that was hosted by Standing Nurse's Office. And there, to my understanding or knowledge, there were no paid French translators at this event at all. There was one volunteer French translator, and she was so overwhelmed with work, one of our friends was just translating the whole time. And that was it. So I think, you know, having this accessibility in other languages, some of these push frameworks, we would love to work with Mesh on it and discuss all this and just map it all out.
Are you aware that the Get Support button has a Spanish thing on it?
Let's take a look together.
And we have a voice tree where you can select Spanish as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if Mark is in the office, he'll quickly come and can speak Spanish.
Okay, and then if people leave, is it a thing where people can leave voicemails and you have like caller ID, like who called? Yeah, I think that that's a great start. I think also, no, we weren't aware of that, and as long as, you know, Mesh feels cool with using that, I mean, I think that's also a huge, there's, explaining the Hispanohablante community, most of which who we would be working with do not own a computer and function solely with an Android device. Conceptually, what Slack is like not the battle. And so I feel like this is really helpful. And no, I wasn't aware of it. And also, I think if people can text, we've set a precedent at BAM. You know, I help with translations via Mil Mundos for essential goods. Some of our friends with Munida Primero, they should do the bookings for food appointments. And we all text, like, I get on the phone, I'm like, ain't nobody got time to just calling you nonstop. Like, I'm at work. Like, I can't just answer the text. Like, let's learn how to use a text message. And so that's kind of the culture that's been built up over a couple of years. So text is also a thing, but phone call, super easy. I just worry that you might have a lot of
So I'll tell you that much. I went to a service with Lion, to a Latino family.
Yeah.
And if two people want to communicate, they will communicate, believe me. Both of us.
But they might not like each other.
I don't know. They needed the service on the roof. We went there to repair this. You got some Spanish, right?
Yeah, my
did,
Spanish is
but we didn't communicate. We just showed them, and you know, if two people want to communicate, they will communicate. And we did the service.
Everyone likes Latin. No.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's the reason.
I think it's more of like, I think what I saw with that service call is like there's the part like once a mesh installer is in the building and on the roof, like we can fix someone's internet.
Right.
Like, and we can fix someone's internet even if we can't really communicate with that person, because it's like, look, we can, like, presumably, you know, as long as they know how to connect to their Wi-Fi router, like we can get the Wi-Fi router to work. So I feel like a lot of it is probably the intro, like a lot of what we're doing as an organization right now that's not really helping Spanish-speaking folks is we don't have people to do the to do the initial contact, to do the panoramas, to do line of sight, to schedule the installs, that kind of stuff, because we just don't have anyone who can walk, walk people through that process.
I think that part is like a lot easier to manage on Mil Mundos' end, and BAM's end. I think we can definitely make that very clear and post and be like, we need people who can do this, and people are super down. And they also want to learn about Mesh, I think there's also, in terms of like stepping into somebody's home and doing that intro, like if there's a repair needed or whatever, there is language translation, there is also cultural translation, right? One of the install that I mentioned to y'all where she didn't know what the Wi-Fi symbol was, it was an interesting install because, we did all the things, we installed, and she was very nice, but in a lot of these apartments where, people who cannot pass credit checks, people who just recently arrived, they're like, I have, $600. You don't have a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom shared by 3 individuals. You have a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom shared by 3 families. And the living scenario is precarious, and the situation is tense. I went in there with complete naivety, and then her roommate, I guess, which was the family living next door, she came up to me and she was like, if you don't give me the password, I'm gonna rip that shit right out the wall. And I was like, oh, okay, well, you and I now have a problem, we can take it outside. And and it got escalated very quick, and she was like, I just literally need internet, and I'm like trying to meet people who can help me, And so that had to be culturally negotiated. So, and in the end, I was like, girl, you just text me if you have any problems. But again, it's like you want somebody who maybe is like not so shocked by what is really going on in the house, and the family can feel comfortable that they don't have to explain top down like this. Yes, this is really my life right now. I really, And so I think even having somebody there that speaks, it's always comforting. Like you go to another country and like you're like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, and like somebody speaks a little English, you're like, oh, thank you. And it's really that relief. It's like literally cortisol levels really going down. So I think having that kind of accompaniment is really critical for a lot of tangible reasons, not just like vague, and that's something people are definitely down to do and people want to learn more about. Mil Mundos has these like Spanish classes also that, is a big part of our business, and we're always telling people like if you want to really learn Spanish, also like people be in our, mid-level and intermediate classes, and we're like, you effectively speak basic Spanish at this point. So you don't need to like talk about marks when you go do an install. You just need to go and be like up, down, turn it off, and so like the most basic shit. And so I think, there's a lot of room for people to get involved here. So I think these are all very, I think these are all very solvable things. And issues we've run into as well.
You had mentioned that there's like 800 open requests, 400 in the last year. What do you think the highest impact return would be? Was that farm? Was that Bushwick, or is that?
Bushwick County Farm.
Yeah. Are you aware of that? You know what I'm talking about, that farm?
Oh, what about it?
That like we did an install there, and it's like supports like a lot of people in one place.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm wondering if that is do you do a lot of those first, and then people see it, realize it, use it, and then it's easier to translate over, or do you do onesie-twosie houses?
Yeah, and I think, the solution here may not be 1 gajillion individual installs, obviously, right? The shelter I mentioned that is heavily Mauritanian is directly across the street from Bushwick City Farms. So if it's a matter of telling people like, yo, if you need Wi-Fi and you want to learn, go across the street, and if you want to learn more about this, we have this meetup in French next week, then that's all well and good. We've met, I know software engineer that came from Venezuela who really needed asylum paperwork. He did the whole, it was crazy. And I was talking to him, and he was so, like, very high level of education and very galvanized to help. And I remember back then, I really didn't know a lot about Mesh, and I really was like at a loss. Eventually he moved to Sunset Park and we lost contact, but he was like, I need a job and I'll do stuff for free and I love it, but like, I need to eat, girl. And he's like, I'm really good at this stuff, but I only know and understand, I don't know any English. There are a lot of people, I meet people like that all the time. People, they have PhDs in other languages. They're like, I don't know any English, I can't do anything here. You know, like, so, there are a lot of people that if I could send some messages to some Signal threads tomorrow being like, yes, people are interested, I think you would see some yield, yeah.
Installers get money for install, right? You know,
Careful.
They get their tips.
go to tips.
Yeah.
And those tips pay for consumables that you buy yourself and bring
Yeah.
to it.
Yes, we've looked at that too. I just have to, I think you want to be careful when you're engaging somebody who is literally well entrenched in a zone of desperation in that, where they like need this money. But also I just would want to make sure revenue-wise and IRS-wise it doesn't affect their application. Yeah. But that we can all talk to whoever knows about that shit. I can call my CPA. I don't know. But yeah. But valid. Yes, absolutely. So are people down?
Oh, we can say that.
Okay, cool. I'll send a summary to the Slack tomorrow morning, and then